there! Welcome to Board Games with Scott. This is a weekly video log or vlog where I take a game and explain it and lightly review it and give you an idea if it's a game you might want to purchase. This week I'm going to be doing a Euro game, or a light strategy game. I'm going to be taking a look at Santiago, which was originally produced in Europe by Amigo and distributed in the US by Z-Man Games. Santiago is for 3 to 5 players, but it actually plays best by far with 5 players. Runs about an hour. The box says ages 10 and up. The rules are well written and easy to get into. This is going to be a game about auctioning and placing pieces on a board, working with other people temporarily, just temporarily, and trying to make the most money by keeping your plantations alive. It's a game about getting water to tiles you've placed on the board to make sure that they don't suffer from a drought and dry up and go away. So keeping your crops watered when selling your crops for the most money at the end of the game. Let's take a look inside this box and see what's there. Here are the parts that come in the game. You get a small board, which will surprise you when you bring it out. It doesn't fold out, anything like that. This is all there is to the board. You get 3 palm trees, which are used for an advanced variant of the game, so we're not going to need those today. You'll get a little doll that represents the canal overseer, which we put in front of a player during play. Each player gets their own set of little wooden cubes and small markers, which they will use. There are some blue wooden markers as well, which will be used to indicate where the water flows on this board. There's money, just like in any other game. And then you get some sturdy cards, some sturdy tiles, and these little chips are going to be used, these tiles will be used during the game to place on the board and indicate that you're trying to grow some crops there. So, while the game doesn't look like much, it's very clever in the way all the bits come together. So let's talk about that in gameplay. So during each phase of the game, you go through a series of stages, and the first thing you do is you flip over a set of these tiles. You're then going to bid for those tiles. And the way the bidding works is, starting with one player will place a bid to have the first selection of tiles. And the next player then can bid any number except for what the first player bid. And the next player can then bid any value except for what that player bid. So you always have to bid different values, which creates some interesting situations. Money is very tight in this game. You don't tend to get a lot of it. You only get $3 a turn. So you're not going to bid crazy. So what happens is sometimes, like the first player bids 1, someone else bids 2, someone else passes, the next person goes to 3, and puts that last person in a bit of a situation. They either have to bid high and beat everyone, or they have to bid really low and they're not going to get much. Now the first player to pass or to bid nothing is going to get the role of the canal overseer. They're going to get last pick, but they're going to end up having some abilities later on in the turn. And it's worthwhile to do this. Usually someone does that in every turn. More than one person can pass, so you can have multiple players that have a bid at 0, but only the first person to pass actually gets the canal overseer. Because money is so tight and because you can't bid what other people's bid, you may find yourself passing even when you really don't want to, but you're out of money, you can't bid the high enough amount, and you end up not getting the canal overseer for that. So, after everyone has bid, in bid order, you take the tile that you want. The tiles come in a number of different colors, and they either have 2 workers or 1 worker on them. The 2-worker tiles are twice as good as the 1-worker tiles, so you have something that you're bidding for. So what you do is you take your tile, let's say you want this one, you place it anywhere on the board that you'd like, and you put 2 of your little cubes on it for the 2 workers. Now, if the tile had only a single worker, you would only put a single cube on it. This is randomly placed before the game, and this is the key of the game. This indicates what squares on the board are watered. Now, once a square is irrigated, once there's water running adjacent to a square, it's going to be irrigated for the game. So you know that these 4 spaces will all have irrigation. They will be fine. But as you see, there are going to be 5 tiles placed, so these 4 might be taken, and that 5th player is going to have to place somewhere else on the board and hope that they can get irrigation to their tile before the end of the turn. The next thing that you do is you determine where irrigation will occur, and this is where that canal overseer player comes into play. Each player proposes a new place for an irrigation. So let's say the white player might say, well, canal overseer, I would really like to have the next canal build be here, and I'm willing to give you $2 to do it. The next player may say, you know, that's not going to benefit me, it's going to help white. I'd rather have you go over here for some reason, and I'll give you $3 to do it. Another player can chime in and add money to either of these choices, or they can add yet another choice. So the way this works, each player has a choice. They can either add their own proposal and put money down, or add money to an existing proposal. And you do end up working together, because quickly you fill up the spaces that are certainly safe. So you'll end up having players work together to try and get a canal built in order so they can irrigate their property. It's then up to the canal overseer to choose what they want to do. And they can either take one of these offers and the money associated with that offer, or they can ignore all these offers and pay one more than the highest bid and build their own canal wherever they want. They can say, you know, I'm just going to build down here and pay one more than the highest bid. So it's a very interesting mechanism that gets players working together temporarily to try and get their way. Now, each player at the start of the game has one of these sticks, and they may choose then to play that stick at this point in the game. At this point in the game, they can play it once and then it's gone. And so that can be used if you've got a really valuable area that you don't want to lose. You can play your stick. And sometimes you'll work together with someone on that. Say, you know, hey, I'll play mine this time, you play yours next time. And then we'll see if they actually do. So the game's gone on for a few turns now. The players have just acquired new tiles and put those down. One thing I didn't mention earlier, if you don't bid anything, if you pass, then any tile that you put down ends up with one fewer worker on it. So we'll assume that white is now the harbor master this turn. So the tile that they just put down, this potato tile, has ended up with one fewer worker because they didn't bid anything. So now the proposal stage comes into play, and we'll say that black goes first, and black might say, I'd really like you to build up here and irrigate that, and I'll give you $2. And then the gray player says, you know, I'd really like to do this one here, and I'll give you $2 for that. The purple player and the beige player both would like this to happen as well, so they might add money into the bid here. Say, well, you know, I will support this with another $2 for a total of $4. For example, and then purple might come in and say, I'll give you another one for a total of $5. So if the person plays there, if the harbor master chooses this one, all three of these players are benefited, and the harbor master player, the white player, gets $5. The white player could say, you know, I don't want to do any of that. I'm going to place up here. I will pay $6, one more than the highest bid, and you all are out of luck. And so at this point now, these two are gone, and these players have choices. If they still have their sticks remaining, one of these three players could choose to play one of their sticks in here in order to benefit all of them. Purple would actually be the one most benefited by this situation, but we'll see what happens. This is where negotiation comes in. It's a very interesting time in the game. So you determine which ones dry out. What you do is you look and see which places do not have irrigation. At this point, it's this one. So you remove a cube, say this one dries out. Now, at the end of the next turn, if this is not irrigated, this tile will get flipped over. There is a reason why you may want a tile to stay face up, even though you have no workers on it. I'll talk about that in scoring. But if no workers get on it, if there's no water to it by the next turn, then we remove the tile. And it's flipped over, it's a barren space and won't score for anyone. That can end up being pretty destructive, as you'll see later on in scoring. So then you get some income, you get $3, and you do the whole thing again. And you do this about 10 times, depending upon the number of players, and then you score. So let's now talk about scoring. So looking here, there are 3 potatoes in this group. Therefore, it's got a base of 3. You multiply that times the cubes that are in that space. So purple has 1 cube, so 1 times 3 is $3 for purple. And 2 cubes are held by white. 2 times 3 is 6. So white would get 6 cubes there. Here, there's 2 in the group, so that's a base of 2. And the beige player has 2 cubes, so that's 2 times 2. That's $4 for beige. Here, the black player, there's one type here of one tile times 1 black, that's 1 point. This is where earlier I talked about if the black had managed to get this irrigated, it would stay there. This one wouldn't score a cube for black, but it'd still count. So now black would have a base of 2 times 1 is 2 points. So sometimes keeping a tile alive, even if you've lost your workers on that tile, can be useful to you. So down here we have a group of 4, that's a base of 4. 4 times 3 would be 12, 12 for purple. And this is what I talked about earlier, why purple really wanted this tile to stay alive. Because if this tile ends up going away and gets flipped over, now the scoring is greatly reduced for purple. Purple's score is now 2. as compared to a much greater score. These two players also would benefit from having this connection. So you end up getting these temporary alliances that work together in the game to keep water flowing. It's a very clever game because of that. To determine your final score, you just add up the amount of money that you have in your hand and add that to the amount of money that you get for each of your tile groupings and sum it up and see who wins. That's Santiago. This is a nice game. It's very clever for 5 people. The bidding mechanism and the mechanism with the overseer are very interesting. The auctions tend to be very tight, very exciting in this game, as you're bidding for a position, trying to decide whether you want to spend your money to get a good tile or not spend any money so that you can later on get money. The bribing mechanism is very clever, so the players temporarily work together to pool their money, or the canal overseer can just say, you know, I don't care, I'm going to put it over here and leave you all to just dry up. So it's a nice game. It would be a good game for families. It's a little deeper than some of the gateway games I've talked about, but it's a good next step. If you like auctioning games, bidding games, collaborating with each other, and clever tile placement, I'll suggest this game. I will give this game, for 5 players, a good solid A. If you have fewer players, I wouldn't rate it as highly. But with a full group of 5 players, this is a great selection. It is available now, and I recommend the game. So with that, I'll thank you for coming to Board Games with Scott. If you want to see more videos like this, go to BoardGamesWithScott.com. And if you want to talk about these games and a huge community of gamers, head over to BoardGameGeek.com. With that, I'll thank you very much for coming, and I'll see you another week. Bye-bye! Potatoes, there's 3 groups of potatoes, and then that number 3 is multiplied times the number of cubes that you have there. So here, white would get 1, 2, 3 times 2 for 6 points, or $6, and purple would get 1 times 1 for $2. Math is fun.